Welcome to the Market Mystics Podcast. I'm Joshua.
I'm Kim. Let's dive in. Do you ever think about leadership and what that actually means?
Yes, somewhat. I don't know if I would say somewhat often, but I think it comes up. It's a topic that comes up regularly.
Me too. And I always feel like I have to justify where I am with leadership and how I have been being led in the last 5 to 10 years. But I'm also getting into this place where I'm really reevaluating what makes a leader. I've, I guess, somewhat recently, maybe for the last 9 months or so, I've been in a position where I have seen people in an organization who are called leadership, which in my being doesn't necessarily make them a leader. It's just a title that someone has given you. But I've kind of sat back and watched the leaders lead and have been honestly wildly impressed. And it's been a long, long, long time since I have seen someone who leads in a way that makes me go, I could follow them.
Yeah. I think what you just said is the perfect definition of leadership. Just actually a couple of days ago, I was having a conversation with someone and they were talking about leadership. And they said, in simple terms, a manager is someone who gets people to do things, and a leader is someone who makes you want to do the thing. And I think that's great because I don't know. Have you ever heard of Jocko Willink, something like that?
Former Navy SEAL.
Yeah. Wrote a lot of books, but he talks a lot about leadership. And he said, if you really boil any leadership down to its very, very lowest essence, it is just simply someone who gets people to do other things. Like you're trying to get someone to do something. And how you do that is what makes you a good leader or not a good leader. And I think it's really cool that you were just talking about the now there's this thing that you've been around and it makes you, or it motivates you to follow them. It gives you like this idea of like, oh, I could follow that person. I could do that. Like that's the difference between a leader and just simply a manager who's like a task manager. You're just someone who is like, hey, this needs to be done. You're in the position to do it. You need to get it done. Like I think those two really stand out when you are in a situation.
For sure. I mean, I think about this cartoon that I saw, cartoon comic, I guess. I saw years ago, probably 15 or 20 years ago, early on in my career. And it was like a split screen side by side. And it is the difference between leadership and management. And it is like a chariot from the Colosseum, right? And there are all these people pulling it, and the manager is in I don't know, what do you call that? The basket, the
chariot part
is maybe? in the chariot, like cracking the whip and saying, let's go. Mm-hmm. And then the leader is out in front of everyone, pulling the hardest, and no one's in the chariot and saying, let's go. So it is like the person who's willing to go do the things that he's trying to get others to do versus the person who just delegates tasks.
Yeah.
And I find there to be such a difference in that. And so many times people who are called or in a leadership position don't actually know how to do anything but delegate tasks. And I think to be a leader, it actually takes some very practiced and learned characteristics. I think some people are born naturally to be leaders, like they naturally step into that and help lead the charge on things. But I do think you can learn to be a leader and learn how to lead.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that picture is a great definition of the two, but I also think that picture is only effective if you're talking about like the really big picture, because the leader also probably shouldn't be dealing with all of the little details most of the time. It depends on the size, I guess, of whatever you're talking about. But I think of like a big business, and like I think another part of good leadership is putting in good managers who are
Mhm.
also good leaders. Like having good delegation, I think, is also part of it, because you also get those leaders who don't want to let go of every little thing and then they micromanage everything.
Mhm.
uh and so there's like, I think there's balance in some of that, of like, what size are we talking about? Are we talking about in a two-person thing? Are we talking about in a, a 1,000 employee thing? Like, but yeah, I mean, even in just the delegation thing, that's still the same definition of leadership, because you're motivating this other person to also carry the vision you're carrying for whatever you're pulling. So, like in the picture of the chariot, like the leader who is out in front, even if he's not the only one pulling or pulling the hardest, like, is he the one that's holding the vision for where you're going? I think that's definitely an important piece of it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, I think I want to give a history lesson. Okay. On
Do it.
Kim. I'm not going to try to quote scripture or something because we all know I'm really good at that. So in the last probably decade or so, um, I was prior to that very involved in a normal Western evangelical church system and
Hmm.
structure. And it was probably about 10 years ago, the Lord really started shifting things and shifting perspectives with me. And we started working one on one with one another. And there was this concept of engaging heaven, right? Like, or the courts of heaven or ascension or whatever it is that you might call it. That was fairly novel. And I learned about it from Ian Clayton, from a video. And then I heard Chris Blackaby, one of his teachings on it. And it just kind of flipped the religion in me on its head in the best way. And so I was so hungry for this and really started diving into some of these teachings that were out there. There was Robert Henderson, and there was Ian Clayton, and there's Mike Parsons. Sorry.
Hmm.
Right. There's Justin Abraham. There are all of these people out there who are teaching on these things. And it was just like feeding my interest in this. But very shortly after getting started with it, in my relationship with the Lord, he was like, no, I don't want you to learn from anyone but me. And so I had to take a step back from seeing these other people, especially in the faith community, as my leader. Like he was putting himself there. This was Yeshua. And he's like, I will lead you, I will teach you the things. And it should not come from anyone else. And it's not to say no one else carries something. It was just, this is what he was going through with me.
Hmm.
And so that was a good 10 years of that. And really not having the clearance to look to other leaders, um, to point in the right direction, to lead the charge, whatever. And only recently has that door kind of reopened a bit. And that's why this is so in the front of my mind. This is why I've been really questioning this. Like what really makes a leader and what
Mm.
qualifies them, Is it like a mass qualification? Does it need to be individual? Can someone who you see as a leader tell you that someone else is a leader and then that qualifies them? Can a position, whether elected or earned, um, qualify someone to be a leader? Do you have to, if you're a leader, do you have to lead multiple people? Can you be just a leader of one person or one thing, even? Like if you have a dog, are you a leader? I mean,
Yeah.
these are the things I'm really mulling over, um, because I think we've, the way that I have had leadership presented to me in my 40 years of life, I think it's been a bit skewed. And it has been more like, this person's a leader, so you should follow them,
Mm.
as opposed to someone is a leader and like displaying and walking out what it is that they're doing and their purpose, and going in a direction in which you also feel led to go. And so then you follow them and see them as a leader. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's such value in the being willing to do what you're asking others to do and leading that charge. And I know that it's a lonely place too. And this is why I really think I really weigh carefully who I regard as leader in my life, um, because I know that it's not, I don't know, I think it's hard fought, you know, people are
Yeah.
leading and falling and making mistakes and failing forward, you know.
Yeah. I think there definitely can be people who are put in positions of leadership over you who um, you didn't agree to put there. Um, and I do think you can be a leader of one person. I think you can be a leader of 1,000 people. I think you can be a leader of your dog. Um, I think you can be appointed a leader. Like I'm thinking like because we've been talking somewhat about like faith things, like um, being ordained by someone else, like is appointing you in a leadership position. I absolutely think all of those things are forms of leadership. Um, but I think what stands out to me is like the big difference is, are you a good leader?
Mm-hmm.
Um, are you someone who is like sacrificing and really pulling the cart with the people and holding the vision and motivating people? Or are you standing back saying, oh, I'm a leader, I don't have to do these things? um, and so I think like those things aren't a requirement of those things aren't a requirement to be a leader, but I do think that's what sets you apart as a good leader. Um, yeah, I just think anyone can be in that, can be put in that position, whether they're ready for it, whether they're good at it. Um, like anyone can be in that position of leadership, but just doesn't mean you're good at it.
No, I would agree. And I think that's where uh all the wrestling for me has come. I mean, I've been in organizations, whether professionally or in ministry or in community, whatever, where
Mm,
there is someone who is the leader, and you come in and are immediately expected to see them as a leader.
right.
And I've been in organizations where those leaders prove that they should be there. And I have also been in organizations where those leaders prove that they have no business to be in that position.
Yeah. And it usually doesn't take very long to see that. Like,
Right.
even, I think, even, especially if you're um, in a church or in a business, like you might be able to tell that within the first few days. Now, there may be times that you aren't able to see that right away, but I think there will be signs because I think the evidence of a good leader is very um like you can see it. You can see the evidence of a good leader.
What do you think that looks like? What are
Um
the fruits of the leader?
I would say the health of the organization. Whether it's a church or a business or your family. The health of that, I think, is a direct result of your um, current capacity in the leader role. Now, I mean, I think people can grow in leadership. I think there's a lot of people who are put in leadership roles before they're ready and they don't know what to do. So they just manage, make sure that the basics get done. Um, but I think that, like, a good leader, the fruits of the company or the church or the family, like, I think you just see that. Like, I think it's part of it. Yeah, I just think that happens naturally. It's something that shows up and that, um, like, I think this is something, are people happy? Like, not that you always have to be happy, but like, if you walk into a new job and everyone's like, oh my gosh, like they look tired, they look beaten, they don't want to be there, like, that may not be the best place. Um,
Right.
if you go to dinner at someone's house and their family is sitting at the table, not having any conversation, totally disconnected, not looking at each other, like maybe there is tension there that needs to be dealt with. Like, I think the signs of good leadership are evident, usually fairly
Hmm.
quickly.
So, based on that, do you think success is a necessary fruit of a good leader?
Probably depends how you define success. I mean, in
Evident
a
success. So in a business,
yeah,
like can a business thrive? If a business is thriving, does that immediately mean that there's good leadership? Or vice versa, if a business is failing, does that immediately mean that there is poor leadership?
probably at some level. Um, I mean, there's a lot of reasons that businesses fail that might not be related to a leader really giving everything they can and leading well. Like, the market could just not be moving in their way, or maybe um, but what I would say is probably to some extent that's still on them because did they need different marketing, did they need a different product, did they need, like, what is it like? I think to some extent it probably does fall to the leader to find a way or find the people to help make the thing work. um
This is my next question then. Um, from what you said, like, do you need to try a different marketing? Do you need to try a different product? These kinds of things.
yeah,
That sounds like the willingness to take some sort of risk.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but with that, I mean, with every risk, there is a pretty decent chance of failure. That's
right,
kind of what makes it
yeah,
risky,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, what if you have a good leader who takes a risk and it flops? Does that make a bad leader?
I don't think so, because I do think, like, I think it happens all the time. Like, I think all the time there are situations where good leaders take risks that don't line up. Like, I don't remember the statistic, but it's like, an entrepreneur goes bankrupt how many times before they actually have the business that makes it work? Like, Um, whether it's like the KFC guy who was like 50 or 60 before he had the idea to do it and it
Colonel
finally
Sanders.
works out. Yeah, like there's I think that um there's definitely good leaders who take risks that don't work out. Um and so it probably also, to answer that question, depends on how zoomed in you are. Like what timeline are you looking at? Because a good leader probably will find a way to survive. Like I think about, not that long ago, uh, I listened to an audiobook that was the biography of Elon Musk, and I don't actually know that I would say he is a great leader, because most people experience of him, he's pretty harsh.
Mhm.
However, he he has had businesses that haven't worked. He has had businesses that have failed. But what he does is he's constantly trying new things and building new things. And there are employees who worked for him in his first business because they were just loyal to who he was and his vision that eventually something will work out,
Mhm.
that they stuck with it. And so I think if you're zoomed in, you can say, yeah, that leader tried something and it didn't work out. But on the grand scale, like if you zoomed out, probably if they're really a good leader and they keep taking those risks, something will happen. Some breakthrough will happen.
Hmm. Okay, so then regarding Elon Musk,
Yeah.
he's not always the best with people,
Yeah.
right? So can you be a leader without leading people? Can you be an effective leader without effectively leading other people? So, like a leader in industry, a leader in innovation. So, he is
Mm,
trying to send somebody to Mars, which he is leading that force, right? Like he's
yeah.
going that direction. But if he's not great at leading people, and I'm not saying he is or he isn't, this is hypothetical, any person would
Yeah.
do in this position, is that still effective leadership?
I would say no, just based on the literal definition. I don't think a leader is a leader unless they're leading other people. Like, I don't know that you could be a leader in industry if you weren't leading other people.
I
Um,
mean, yes, it's I feel like it's an interesting thing because I'm thinking about that example, and I don't know Elon. I really respect the guy. Which, I mean, if you're political in some way, you may agree or disagree. And last week you might have agreed or disagreed the other way. I
yeah,
don't know. um I respect the hell out of that guy. Like, I just think he's someone who forges forward
yeah.
regardless. He's an innovator, and I have a lot of respect for that. Um, but let's say he wasn't a good leader of people. I'm not saying that. Let's say there was a leader of industry that was not good at leading people. But what if, as a collective, leads an entire society into something new
Mm,
without being like the person looked at as like a people leader?
right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I I think to be successful in leading society, you have to convince people that you're worth following. And so even if he's not directly the greatest leader, does he um, does he put people in positions who are good leaders, who can make his vision a reality? Like, I think there's lots of people who have visions of how to make a successful society, but they don't have any influence because no one will listen to them.
Yeah.
And so, like, I would say that person's not a good leader, even if theoretically they could be a good leader. um
Hmm.
and so I think like someone in a situation like that, who maybe is not the best leader, maybe doesn't have the best people skills, um, but are they putting people on their team who do have that part? And so they can carry the vision, they can be out in the front, pulling, pushing, um, but
Steering the ship.
then steering the ship. But then there's people who are leading the people and like with that. Like I think a big part of leadership is who you have around you.
Hmm. That's interesting. Okay. So do you think you said something that made me wonder this? Do you think that influence is synonymous with leadership?
Hmm. Maybe on some level. I think, yeah, maybe
Is
you have
Mr.
to have,
Beast a leader because he has influence? Or is he just someone? Is he a spectacle? Is he just someone
hmm,
that people watch?
I mean, I would say he's a leader because he has certainly, I mean, you can call it just influencing, but he has made lots of people change the way they do YouTube.
This would be innovation of industry, like leader of industry, but is he a leader of people? See, this is where it's coming back to
Yeah,
some of this because I don't know that I see him as a leader, like someone I would look to as a leader,
right.
right? Like I respect that guy, whatever direction he's going, I'm going.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of influence there. And he truly, I absolutely, I agree with you. He's really changed the way a lot of people have made content and are approaching that.
Yeah. I think I think he I would still consider him a leader because he has a pretty significantly sized team that helps support his vision. And I don't think that without that team, he would have the influence that he does. There's very few people who are just influencers who don't have a team of people supporting them, helping, what, like in that realm, like edit videos, come up with thumbnails, um like that whole piece. And maybe he is involved in all of that and leading that, but um like he did his game show on Amazon Prime that had like set all these Guinness World Records for having the most number of contestants and the most prizes, and he may have been able to dream that up alone, but he never would have been able to execute it alone. And if you can't execute it, I don't think you can influence industry and society. um and so although he may not be leading in a typical way, he is leading a team that has helped lead the way in YouTube.
Hmm, that's interesting. I have so many questions I could ask just off of
Well,
Mr. Beast.
what do you think about like that question? Like,
I I see a difference between um, being an innovator leader and being a leader of people, of man. Um, because I think you can be a leader of people without having any product that comes from it, um, without having the typical scale of success being tipped.
hmm,
Um, I think I don't know. I think leadership of man is so nuanced. And I think that leader of industry doesn't necessarily equate to leader of people.
yeah,
Yeah.
I see
Um,
that. I just wonder
yeah.
if you can lead industry totally as a solo person with no one else around you and have any influence at all.
I would say so. I mean, I guess this person might have a team around them. One of the biggest leadership speakers that I know of right now is Simon Sinek,
Mm-hmm.
and he wrote a book, has these very, I don't know, well-known TED Talks, like Lead with Why, and like why the leader always eats last, you know. Um, but I don't see him with a team around him. I see him as a single person who influences people in the realm of leadership. But also, it begs the question, can you know what leadership is without being a good leader? Could you even teach on leadership without being a good leader?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying he's not a good leader. This is all
Yeah.
like, just
Yeah.
so you know, I'm not trying to badmouth anybody. I'm just using
Yeah.
examples of people I know in leadership spaces or with some leadership position. And he is someone who is a single person, like speaking very broadly, like, I mean, like across a wide expanse of people about leadership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So essentially, a philosopher of leadership
Mm-hmm.
is what it almost seems like. I don't know enough about this person, but John Maxwell is like a name that is
Mm-hmm.
always brought up in leadership talks.
Yeah.
I don't actually know what his background is, or is he just an expert on leadership?
Mm-hmm.
And again, now I'm going to circle right back, is leading people into good leadership, actually being a leader, even if you're not personally leading them. Does leadership require personal relationship?
I don't think leadership requires personal relationship. Um, and I think large companies are the best example. Like there's you could work for a huge company and never ever ever see or meet or know your CEO and CFO and COO. Um, and so I don't think that that requires it, but um, yeah, I'm stuck on your thought of like a theologian of leadership because I'm like, oh yeah, like that, like you, that's probably totally doable without actually having anyone following you. Um, yeah, to like theorize on leadership, but I wonder like how much can you theorize on leadership without um,
Having actually led?
having actually led? Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, there's the whole philosophy space that is essentially that.
mm-hmm.
Again, not trying to dog on anyone. Philosophy was actually my favorite courses in college. So I really love philosophy. Probably why we have a podcast where we just talk about stuff.
Yeah,
Um, but I think absolutely there could be that. I think there are voices and spaces that are talking about things that are simply in theory and simply I can't say the word philosophied. You know,
yeah.
you've thought it through, done you've done the research, you've thought it through, but are you actually putting it in practice, or are you just teaching others how they could put it in practice?
Mm,
That's an interesting thing to me too, especially if we
yeah,
go back to the chariot that we talked about earlier.
yeah, yeah. I think leadership is a really, I mean, clearly it's nuanced, or we wouldn't still be talking about it 30 minutes later. Like there's there's levels to it, and what makes it a good leader, what makes it a bad leader, yeah, I think there's so many levels and possibilities to it. But I
Yeah.
do think probably that definition of leadership is being someone who motivates other people to do something. Like, I think it has to be, it's got to involve other people, because otherwise like
What are you leading?
there's no leading. Like,
Right.
yeah. Like, I
Who's
think
what's
it's,
being led?
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If there isn't some level of, um yeah, if there's not some level of people following, then there's no leading.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think I've really settled into, for me, what leadership looks like is the going out front and being willing to do it first
Yeah.
and fail so that others don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why kind of I was asking about success is I think one of the signs of a good leader is someone who knows how to fail well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't mean they're a
Yeah.
failure, but I mean they have failed and they have failed and they have failed, but they've gotten
Right.
up and kept going each time and they're
Yeah.
going forward. It's not pushing them back, it is pushing them forward. It gives the fuel for
Yeah.
them to keep going. It gives them the reason to continue paving that road, you know?
Do you know the Rich Dad Poor Dad book? Have you heard of
Robert
that?
Kiyosaki.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh,
Um,
Kiyosaki. I have a different
yeah.
one of his books right there.
Yeah.
It's
Uh,
fake. Oh, you can't see it in the screen.
can't see it. He talks about the concept of like failing up and failing often, like
Hmm.
learning learning very quickly. So starting something, being like, oh, that didn't work, analyzing why it didn't work, adjusting, moving up. Um, and I think that's exactly what you're talking about. It's not that every endeavor has to be successful, but are you learning from it? Are you growing from it? Are you pulling people up higher every time you also go up higher?
Yeah. 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 It's it's an interesting one. I feel like we could talk to 1,000 different people and get 1,000 different
Answers.
definitions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I find
Yeah.
it fascinating um, because I think what it really boils down to is what qualifies someone as a leader for you.
Mm,
What makes someone worthy of being followed in your life? And I think it's an important question to kind of ask yourself so that you don't get caught up in following people who actually aren't meeting the criteria that you have set for standards for yourself in your own life.
yeah.
And also kind of reevaluating those who you are following and knowing why are you following that person. Maybe
Hmm.
they are super worthy and you've just never like figured out why. Well, maybe now you know what it is, what that looks like for someone to be a leader in your life. And honestly, there's some honor that can come with that that might really help them keep going too.
Yeah. I think recognizing who has leadership in your life, why they have leadership in their life, that absolutely leads to honor, and probably should lead to honor, because if you
Mm-hmm.
have a good leader in your life, you should be extremely grateful that you get to be influenced by a good leader.
Yeah. That
Um,
someone's willing to go get their knees bloodied
yeah.
so that you can come up behind them. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a lot of respect and honor due to those that we respect. If you're listening to this and you're one of my leaders, you might wind up getting a note about it.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I'd be really curious what, like, from our listeners, like who you've been influenced by, what leaders you really look up to, why you look up to them. Yeah, I think it's important to have that like self-reflection and thought process.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, thanks for hanging with us. through this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that's been swirling. I mean, in our conversations for months. It's been months now. And obviously, I was going to say living rent free in my mind, but it's not rent free. Like,
it's a cost.
There's a cost there, but
Yeah.
I've really been evaluating this, and I've really been trying to put some clarity, I would say definition, but I don't know that it's completely defined yet. Some clarity to what is it that qualifies that for me. I also have to say, I think it is perfectly valid for you, Josh, to have leaders in your life who I might also have in my life, but they may not be my leaders. I think it's actually really necessary that not everybody follows exactly the same one. I'm not talking about with Yeshua or the Father, okay? That's not what I'm talking about with that, but I'm talking about with people.
Human leaders.
Yeah, I think we kind of all have a tribe, and we have those people who appeal to you but don't appeal to me, and they might appeal to me and might not appeal to you.
I think everyone has a different destiny and a different purpose, and finding someone who is a good leader headed the direction of your destiny and your purpose is really important.
Yeah.
It's probably necessary for your success.
For sure. And I think it's perfectly okay to even see that someone is a leader for others without them being your leader, and still respect them for that too.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
I was talking about this organization all the way in the beginning, like what made me start thinking about this. There are multiple leaders, and there are some that are just not my flavor, but I see that they lead people and they lead people well. It's just not what I need to be following. And I think that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Listeners, let us know your thoughts on leadership. We'd like to hear it.
Truly. Okay. See you on Thursday. If you're a member. If you're not a member, I guess we'll see you Monday. But if you are a member, we'll see you on Thursday.
And if you're not a member, maybe you should consider becoming a member, liking the video, subscribing to the channel. All those things are helpful. Becoming a member gets you one extra free video a week. It's pretty amazing.
That's true. And we talk kind of about, we're a little more loose with what we talk about.
That's true. That's fair.
That's what
sometimes,
I'll say.
Sometimes for good things, sometimes it might not be as great, but it's always fun.
Okay, see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Market Mystics. If you are hungry for more, don't miss out on our exclusive bonus content available only to YouTube members. Demystify the world of cryptocurrency in the cryptosphere and explore everything from outrageous conspiracies to curious current events and out there spiritual musings. Nothing is off limits in Let's Get Weird. Become a channel member on YouTube to unlock these extra episodes. See you in the bonus episodes.